My friends, how's it going? It's good to see you back. It's been a very eventful week. I heard from a bunch of you, and keep the comments coming. I love it. Some of you had some legal questions, and I always, something happens and you have something you want to run it by me, go ahead. I'll even give you my phone number, 619-672-1741. I heard from a few of you last week. It was great. Today we're going to talk Hunter Biden. In this case, it's a funny story. His whole criminal case is a very funny story. And as we kind of enjoy it, you'll learn a lot about constitutional rights, Second Amendment rights, gun rights, criminal law, all of these subjects you'll pick up as we're talking about his case. Of course, as always, let me know, hit me up if you have comments and questions. So another lawsuit that just happened over the last week is Elon Musk got sued again for billions of dollars. This guy has so many lawsuits against him, Elon Musk. I wonder how he keeps it organized. So this one, the latest one, so in the year 2022, in late 2022, he sold about $7 or $8 billion of shares of Tesla. And he did that because he had to fund his purchase of Twitter. And it just so happened in October of 2022, he made kind of a statement saying, oh, we're doing great. Tesla's doing awesome. You know, there's so much demand for Teslas out there. It's growing, this and that. And then, you know, as you know, he's an exec there, right? The shares were going up and up. And then he sold a lot of his, like I said, it was about $7.5 billion of shares that he sold in November and December of 2022. And then wouldn't you know it, in early 2023, a report came out saying that the last quarter of 2022 was really bad for Tesla. And the shares dipped 12% that same day. And now he's getting sued for billions of dollars, saying he had inside information, because he knew the numbers and all of that as an exec at Tesla. So he had inside information about, the numbers are going to be bad. And that they're going to go down, and he intentionally sold, billions of dollars of shares, knowing that the stock was going to dip. Interesting lawsuit, huh? Interesting lawsuit. I think it's got some legs, but I think he had to sell because he was funding Twitter. I think if it was, that's going to probably be his saving grace. If it wasn't for that, then a lot of a judge and jury could say, well, that was amazing timing, wasn't it? That you did something like that. But because it was, he had to sell for Twitter reasons, then I think it's going to be fine. I think it was just coincidental that the stock went down right after he sold his shares. He's always had good timing, Elon Musk. I figured that he's got great timing, and my timing isn't as good as Elon's timing. Speaking of timing, so the singer Cyndi Lauper announced her farewell tour is coming up. She was a bit before your time, huh, Mateo? You didn't grow up listening to Cyndi Lauper, did you? I know Zeke and I did. I bet, huh, Zeke? Girls just want to have fun, right? I could see Zeke when he was a little kid singing, "Girls just want to have fun," right, Zeke? Come on, you sang that song. It was a good song. You know that song too, right? As a youngin', So yeah, Cyndi Lauper turned 71 this month of June. She turned 71, and it's her farewell tour. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity to go see her, why not? You could see a living legend in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it was a big deal when I was a kid. She was a very big deal growing up. Are you a Rubio's fan? Rubio's Mexican? You don't like Rubio's? Come on, Rubio's is awesome. They're closing a lot of shops here in San Diego. This is there's a history behind Rubio's. Mr. Rubio himself went on a trip to Baja California, and he loved the fish tacos so much that he brought that culture up to San Diego. It made a big difference in San Diego. It's I think our town is the home of the fish tacos. Don't tell me you get fish tacos at Chipotle. They don't have it there anyway, right? What don't you like about Rubio's? Oh, they're too big, you think? Oh man, they did kind of become corporate. Well, now they're going to become a lot smaller. They're closing 12 stores here in San Diego. Hopefully they'll still be the ones near my house, because I do dig going there. This is not a paid advertisement. I actually really do like Rubio's.
Sounds like paid advertising.
Yeah, it does sound like paid advertising. No, Cyndi Lauper did not pay me to say go on her farewell tour. I think if I if I did ask her for any money, she'd give me the middle finger. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, I mean, yeah. But nonetheless, even with her giving me the middle finger, I highly recommend going there. What up, Zeke? Madonna would give me the middle finger. I do like Madonna too. She hasn't announced any sort of farewell tours, right? Madonna? Yeah, they're the same age. They were kind of popular at the same time. Madonna became a lot more popular. Speaking of popular, our friend Hunter Biden here, this guy really, really ran up a racket on himself here. In 2018, this all stems about 6 years ago, he purchased a revolver, a Colt revolver. Should we superimpose the Colt revolver right here? I don't know. Then YouTube might think that's some sort of weird.
Make it a water gun.
Make it a water gun. All right, here we go. It's like this, but imagine a real revolver, okay? So he purchased this sucker in 2018, and he only had it for about 10 days. Only 10 days, and his girlfriend at the time threw it out. She got rid of it because he was he was having some mental struggles, and she got worried about him, potentially using the gun for a bad reason. So she gets rid of it. So that happens in 2018. This particular case, when he filled out a background check, the background check asks a lot of questions like, are you under an indictment for some sort of felony? He said, no. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? This is the background check. He said, no. Are you a fugitive from justice? No. Have you been adjudicated as a mental defective? No. Or have you been committed to an insane asylum? No. Dishonorable discharge from the armed forces? No. Do you have a restraining order? So all these things, no. And the one that was, relevant in this case, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug? And he said no. And that's what this whole case revolves around, whether or not he lied in order to get his gun. Now, it wasn't a big deal when this happened in 2018. It became a big deal around 2020 when his dad ran for president of the United States. When he ran again, God, what is going on in our country? Is this the best options we have again? Just like in 2020, our only options were Biden and Trump. And now 2024, our only options are Biden or Trump. In our whole country, these are the best two options we have. Mateo, can you explain that to me? Zeke, someone just told me today, he goes, well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she died in the Supreme Court. So I guess we're going to have a president that's going to die on, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I can't believe these are our best options that we have in our whole country, both of them. Nonetheless, so in 2020, as his dad ran for president, so this Hunter Biden thing became more and more popular. Things like, he left his laptop somewhere and somebody accessed all these emails. And there was this allegations that he was doing some improper dealings in Europe and that he was using influence of his dad being, a presidential candidate and a former senator and former vice president. He used that kind of to his advantage to do business deals and things like that. So things were getting ramped up. And then this came out, this thing about this background check that he signed. And then that started getting investigated. What happened was they investigated it and they figured out, they go, wait a minute, technically, this guy is a drug addict. So he could have lied on this background form. Now, Hunter Biden has an interesting, very quick, I'll explain his life story. He was born in 1970. When he was just 2 years old, it's really sad. When he was just 2 years old, he was he was a baby and he was in a car crash with his brother, his sister, and his mom. And sadly, his mom and sister died in that car crash. And he had a skull fracture. He was only 2 years old, potential brain damage at 2 years old. And to this day, he says that may have really affected him, like in the long run, we'll never know. I mean, who knows? But he did ultimately, he went to Georgetown College and then he went to Yale Law School. He graduated Yale Law School. So he ended up doing very well in school. Business wise, I'm not sure. Sadly, his brother died of brain cancer about 10 years ago. And now, in that 2020 election is when he really, really rose to fame. And Donald Trump was kind of saying, oh, what about this guy? And why are we not investigating Hunter Biden? And why are we not, going after him? So there was this investigation about the gun charge, and what happened was originally the government kind of investigated this. He agreed. He said, "Okay, fine. In retrospect, I didn't answer that question truthfully." So he admitted to it. Like he reached an agreement with the federal government that he would take all of these classes and kind of diversion programs for his drug problems, and he would not own another firearm. I mean, he only owned one for 10 days, that he would not own another one, and everything was sort of fine. And that was going to kind of move along the system. However, as he got more popular, and as Donald Trump and the media and different right-wing outlets kind of kept harping on it, eventually the federal government reneged on this plea bargain deal. They kind of had an avenue to do it when the judge was asking questions, and the government said, "Okay, fine, we'll renege this and we'll prosecute this case." And that's what happened. So he had a plea agreement kind of tentatively worked out that fell apart, and now we're involved in this big criminal case over this. His case is going to be a tough one, Mateo. I'm going to tell you why. Because it was pretty clear. The question said, "Are you addicted to a narcotic drug?" Now, this gentleman, Hunter Biden, what I didn't mention when I said his life story, he wrote a book. You know where I'm going with this, right? I've said it a lot of other times. When people write a book, they end up saying too much. In his book, it should have been just titled, "I'm addicted to narcotic drugs." That's what the title should have been, because he talks about it nonstop in his book. All right. So it's going to be difficult for him to prove to a jury that indeed he was not a drug addict when he wrote a book, and he did interviews, and he even had an audio tape of his book. So it's like every imaginable thing you can think of, this guy did it. To say to the world, "Okay, I was addicted to drug, I was a drug addict, and here I am now." Okay, so in that sense, his case kind of looks clear that he's going to be found guilty. However, as you're run it by my lawyer, nothing is ever that simple. I said it from the outset, right? We're going to talk about the Second Amendment and all these constitutional rights. So listen to this. There was other cases where this came up, that somebody would be addicted. Well, I'll cite the case. So United States versus Daniels, a Fifth Circuit case, and then for the lawyers out there who want the citation, 77 F 4337. The lawyers will understand that citation. Okay, so in this other case, there was a gentleman who was a admitted marijuana user. Like he was just a weed smoking guy. And he even, like, after he got arrested, they asked him, "Well, how often do you smoke marijuana?" And he said, on a given month, about 14 days. So that's about half, right? So maybe a touch less than half. So he admitted to being a marijuana user. And one of the things that they found when they had arrested him for something else is that he had a gun in his possession. So then he was also charged with the same thing that Hunter Biden is being charged with, which is illegally possessing a firearm, because he was an admitted addict to drugs, okay, and that he used marijuana all the time. Now, he ends up getting convicted of that, this Mr. Daniels. And the reason why this is important is because it sets a potential precedent for Hunter Biden's case. And then he gets convicted. He appeals it to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, and the Fifth Circuit reversed his conviction, ruling that it is a violation of the Second Amendment rights to not allow drug addicts to possess firearms. Now, just hear me out. This is what the court said. All right. They said, okay, fine. And this is the court. This is not Joe Samo trying to be funny, damn it. This is the court saying this. They said, fine. He gets high all the time. He's addicted to marijuana. Okay, that's fine. But he wasn't using marijuana when he got busted with the firearm. In other words, all right, how do I put this? it's like imagine a somebody having a driver's license. Now, if that guy that has a driver's license is an alcoholic, let's say he's a admitted alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. I've been an alcoholic, for my whole life, okay? And I've never been clean from drinking alcohol. Is he still allowed to drive a car? Yeah, right? As long as he's not drunk while he's driving the car. You with me, Mateo? So the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said that it's okay that somebody, just because they're a drug addict, and I'm trying to say this with a straight face. Let me say it with a straight face, damn it. Just because someone's a drug addict, he could still possess a firearm as long as he's not intoxicated or under the influence of drugs while he's using a firearm. You with me? That's the law, okay? This is the Fifth Amendment. And the way not the Fifth Amendment, sorry, I apologize. The Fifth Circuit interpreting the Second Amendment. The reason why they said this is they use the new United States Supreme Court precedent that said, okay, anytime we restrict someone's use of a firearm, there has to be kind of this strict scrutiny and we're going to apply that restriction with strict scrutiny, and there has to be a historical context, meaning there has to be something in our history, like in the framers, when they wrote the Second Amendment back in the 1700s, there has to be some sort of historical reason, if they restricted someone's use of firearms back then that same kind of restriction would apply today. And what the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said is the following. They're like, well, back then, when they wrote the Constitution and when they wrote the Second Amendment, there was alcohol, it existed, right? So they could have said, well, if somebody is regularly using alcohol, then they forfeit their Second Amendment right and they cannot possess a firearm. Did they say that in the Second Amendment? No. The people shall have the right to bear arms. There was no, the people shall have the right to bear arms unless they are an alcoholic. They didn't say that. Are you with me? So because they didn't say that, gosh darn it, then it doesn't apply today. Now, it's okay, we could expand it just to say while they're intoxicated. That's such a high conflict. We don't want someone while they're drunk to be using a gun. So we could restrict that because that would pass the level of strict scrutiny, but not to say generally, okay, all people that are addicts should not be able to possess a firearm. So therefore, the Fifth Circuit, stated that federal law violates the Second Amendment. Now, how does this relate to Hunter Biden? Oh, and by the way, also there was a federal law that says people with felonies cannot possess a firearm. There was a Third Circuit decision that said, no, even that violates the Second Amendment. Like, whoa, felons should be able to possess firearms? The Third Circuit Court of Appeals said, yes, especially if they're non-violent felonies. So just because somebody's been convicted of a felony, especially if it's a non-violent felony, that should not reduce their right to bear arms. All right. And there was, okay, speaking of, there's also one other case that was important in this line of cases. This is also a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal. There was a guy that had a freaking restraining order against him because he was violent toward his girlfriend. And so he had a restraining order against him. And even him, then he was busted for having a firearm when he wasn't supposed to because he had a restraining order. And part of the restraining order was he can't have a firearm. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said, no, just because someone has a restraining order, it doesn't mean they're not allowed to bear arms. All right. Yeah. It's an interesting one, right? The reasoning the court said, and I'll say this again with a straight face. This is the court talking. This isn't Joe Samo trying to be funny. When the framers wrote the Constitution, they didn't restrict the right to bear arms. Okay. So the rich, powerful white folks that could bear arms back then in the 1700s, even if they were violent toward a spouse, right? that didn't restrict their right to bear arms. So should it restrict the right today? According to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, no. All right. So now all of this happening, all these other cases, Hunter Biden's lawyers made an argument, all right, saying that this particular law that says that if somebody is addicted to drugs, they're not allowed to possess a firearm, that law is unconstitutional. And therefore, this whole case should be dismissed. The court in Hunter Biden's case rejected that argument and said, no, and our interpretation of the Second Amendment is that if the government sees that this kind of, we don't want drug addicts to possess firearms, that is such a big safety concern, and that the right to bear arms is not 100% absolute. There can be restrictions to it. And one fair restriction is that an addict cannot possess a firearm. All right. You think Hunter Biden's lawyers agree with that decision by the court? No, right? So they don't agree. So they appealed that case or the decision by the court, saying that the trial court ruled that that it's not a breach of the Constitution to forbid an addict to have a firearm. Okay, so they appealed that. Now, the first thing in an appeal, I love explaining this now. In addition to constitutional law, now we'll talk a little bit about appellate civil procedure here. The first order of business when you appeal a case, the appellate court takes several months, are you ready for this, to decide if they'll decide the case. All right? Let me explain what I mean by that. All right, because theoretically, Hunter Biden can go and win his case. Maybe the jury says, oh, he's not an addict. Or maybe the jury says, that question asks if he's an addict at the time he's purchasing the gun. And maybe that time of his life he wasn't or something. So he could win his case for other reasons. We don't want to decide an appeal until the case is ripe for an appeal. So it's that idea of ripeness in some circumstances. So here, what the appellate court said in Hunter Biden's case is they said, we're not going to decide this issue now. Okay, gotta hate lawyers, right? And this is why if someone said to ask the lawyer, well, did we lose the appeal? No, right? We didn't lose the appeal, Hunter. Oh, great. So we won the appeal. No, we didn't win the appeal. We didn't lose the appeal. We didn't win the appeal. All that happened was the court said, go back to trial. And if you lose the trial, then come back and appeal. So after there's a final judgment, then come back and file your appeal, and then we'll hear it. Okay? Are you with me? Everyone with me here? If you're not with me, call me right away. Okay? The other argument that Hunter Biden made in his case was that the case should be thrown out because of what's called selective and vindictive prosecution. Now, this is a constitutional law issue. If there is, let's say there's some sort of, this was popular, for example, with loitering cases, loitering being like you can't just be hanging around somewhere, okay? And what the United States Supreme Court has said in the past, all right, there was some jurisdictions that the police were kind of just using that selectively, and the prosecutors were just prosecuting like a certain race, okay? And that therefore, if there's something where they're using a law and they're selectively enforcing it against, this is what the jurisprudence is about this. If they're selectively using that against a race or a religion or, people that, let's say, exercise some sort of protected speech, like, for example, like union organizers or something. If they used some law selectively against some people, then that enforcement can be thrown out, okay? What happened in this particular case, Hunter Biden said, is, well, I had an effing deal done. everything was fine. Okay. But because of Donald Trump going off the handle, talking about me and these right-wing media, outlets going off, and then Congress, Republicans in Congress got involved and they came out to get me. They were like selectively enforcing this law against me because everyone else, if they didn't get busted for some sort of like gun charge, then this particular issue about the background check never comes up. And this is what I said also about Donald Trump's case in New York, that they didn't prosecute people who were not Donald Trump, for those same things. Here's what the court said. The court said, even if Hunter Biden was singled out because he was the president's son, and even if the prosecutor is selectively enforcing this law against Hunter Biden when they don't enforce it against everybody else, even if that were true, it does not violate the Constitution. All right, let me tell you why. Okay, before you guys freak out. And same with Donald Trump. Donald Trump made this argument, and the court said no, that doesn't violate the Constitution. The reasoning is this: the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment is that you can't discriminate based on race, religion, nationality, right? And here, going after Hunter Biden, they're not going after Hunter Biden for his race, religion, or nationality. They're going after him because he's the president's son. Nowhere in the Constitution does it state, all right, that you can't discriminate against the president's son. All right, you with me? Okay, so therefore, even if it's true that they went after him because he's the effing president's son, the judge said, that's fine. God bless the prosecutor and the prosecutorial discretion. All right, they're allowed to do that. Hunter Biden was not happy with that decision, and he also appealed that decision. The appellate court, remember the first thing that they do, they decide if they're ready to decide the case. They decided, the appellate court, that decision was not ready for appeal. So the appellate court basically said, just like on the Second Amendment argument, go back to the trial court, and if you lose, then come complain to us. And if you don't lose, then great. We don't have to decide that issue, Only if you lose, then you come back to us. So now comes the trial, all right? Now, I said before, it's going to be tough for him to win. So here's how his lawyers are going to try to defend him in this case. When he filled out the background form, it states, okay, and I'll just use the pertinent part. Are you addicted to a narcotic drug or any other controlled substance? Okay. Are you addicted? It doesn't say, have you ever been addicted to a controlled substance? You with me? It doesn't say that. So his lawyers are going to say, well, the question is vague about time and place. So he wasn't addicted in October of 2018. He wasn't addicted then. Maybe he was addicted his whole effing life until then, all right? But just so happened he wasn't addicted when he filled out this form. So he was clean. He had gone to rehab, and he didn't consider himself an addict. An addict is somebody, it doesn't say here, are you, what do you think? If somebody was addicted to something, but they're no longer using, are they still an addict, Mateo?
According to like AA, yeah.
According to AA,
what is addiction?
What is addiction? Right? Well, that's the beautiful part here, is that the jury could decide that for themselves. It's kind of like, what does that mean? So, because this whole case is just, he said he checked the no box. Okay, I'm going to check the no box here also. All right, he checked the no box saying, I'm not addicted to a controlled substance. So his lawyers will make the point saying, well, he wasn't, when he checked out the box in October of 2018, he wasn't addicted. Okay, maybe he was before, maybe he wasn't, but he wasn't addicted then. And therefore, he did not lie on this application. All right. If the application said, have you ever used these drugs? Then he would have to say yes. If the application said, were you ever in the past addicted to these drugs? Then he'd have to say yes. It just states, are you addicted? So he interpreted that reasonably to mean, are you addicted to drugs today, being the day he filled this out in October 2018. You with me? And he interpreted that to say, no, I am not addicted today to drugs. Oh, there's this best part in this, or a funny part of The Sopranos. It was in one of the shows, the guy goes, he's like, hey man, take these drugs and get back and play music. And the guy goes, I don't do drugs anymore. Right? So here, Hunter Biden basically, when he filled out this form, said, well, I don't do drugs anymore. All right. What do you think, Mateo?
What court is this?
This is in the federal court in the state of Delaware. So we have a jury here in the state of Delaware that's going. Now it's not. I said it's the federal court in the state of Delaware. So that's the jury, and the juries are going to decide these questions. Zeke, guilty, not guilty? If you were a juror, Zeke is saying, "Oh." Zeke said he's confused. That's a good sign for Hunter Biden because it's the prosecutor's burden to prove that it's a clear-cut case and that Hunter Biden is guilty. You with me? So you wouldn't, if you had to, you wouldn't. You're not convinced he's guilty. There we go. So Zeke's not convinced he's guilty. Mateo, with a little sample jury here.
Not entirely. No.
No, you don't think so either. Should I read his memoirs to you that talks about what an addict he is or that he was? Right?
He's probably technically guilty. You know?
He's probably technically guilty. All right.
You say is or was, and that's enough of a confusion right there. And then also,
Zeke's saying, well, why is that question on the application? Because the federal law is that no addict can possess a firearm. Okay. That's the federal law. Now, that is up on appeal in other cases, okay? Or I'm sorry, that has been decided in other circuits that is a potential violation of the federal law. Now, the United States Supreme Court has not made that decision yet about whether or not an addict can be restricted from possessing a firearm. So, assuming the law is constitutional, meaning it's a fair question and addicts should not possess a firearm, so the jury, because the jury is not going to decide the legal issue. The jury is just going to decide, did he lie on the form? That's the only thing the jury is going to decide. Here's the Joe Samo prediction. Da, 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 da. I think the jury is going to find Hunter Biden guilty of lying on this form. Okay, so I think he's going to be found guilty of lying on the form. I think his lawyers will make a good argument saying that the question was super vague as in terms of when is an addict, but I think the jury's going to say, dude, this guy has been an addict his whole effing life, so he lied on the form. So I think he's going to be found guilty. Da, 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 da. But is that over?
Nothing is over. Nothing.
He's going to appeal that. Remember what I said? He already appealed it, and the appellate court didn't deny his appeal. They just said it's not ready yet for an appeal. Go back to court. I think he'll be found guilty, but I then think that the conviction will be reversed on appeal. So my prediction, if I had to make one, is that he'll be found guilty, and then on appeal it will be reversed. I'm going out on a limb. Yep. So I'm doing a parlay here. I'm doing a 2-game parlay. He'll be found guilty in the trial court, and then he'll win on appeal. That's my two-game parlay there. If anybody wants to bet against me, let me know. I'm taking all bets. All right. Let me know what you think.